So the marketing for this film really pushed this idea of exploring this world in a new location, such as a metropolis like New York, that is very loud with millions of people, and presented this idea of how would a city, a metropolis such as New York, be affected. But when it came to the actual movie, you don't really get anything new. Hello, everyone. My name is Max Aaron James. This review of the movie A Quiet Place, Day One, written by Michael Sarnowski, Brian Woods, John Krasinski, and directed by, excuse me, Michael Sarnowski. This is the third installment of a franchise that is slowly exposing or revealing the cracks in its story and the flawed storytelling here as we see another movie that is relying solely on the idea that made the first one so entertaining. We follow a cancer patient, who is pretty much over life in the first 2 days of this invasion of these creatures called Death Angels that are very reliant on sound and seem to have a keen sense of sound, but do not always show it in this movie. And I know it seems like a nitpick, but this is not Day One. Day One sounds like a good title, but I'm pretty sure most of the movie is dedicated to the second day of this invasion. But that's not the issue I really have with this movie. For the Death Angels to have such a keen sense of hearing, they don't really use it. We have moments where I can hear the characters breathing, we can hear them walking, especially the lead male character. I can hear his shoes tapping against the sidewalk. And when these creatures come face to face with them, for some reason, all of a sudden they can't hear them breathing or their heartbeats. They can hear me coughing a mile away, but if you are face to face, they can't hear your heart rate or your slowed breathing. They can't hear anything. Because, yeah, the guy was making a lot of noise during this movie, and somehow he was getting away with it. And by the end of this movie, or at the end of this movie, I ended up walking out feeling nothing, leaving with nothing, and not really having anything to hang on to or feel good about or really to appreciate. Then we have our great lead, Lupita Nyong'o, who is a fabulous actor who plays a character here that has no redeeming qualities to make up for the unlikability that they really pushed onto the character's personality. And they tried to make her seem like she doesn't care about anything, but then she has a heart of gold, but she didn't really show any redeeming qualities, and there's no way for me to feel any connection or any sympathy or empathy for her. Similar to Watchers, they dump this trauma on this character that happened prior to the movie, right? For one, the character has cancer, and the character lost family and misses home, but I don't see how this person was affected by it when it happened. So I'm just going to have to go off how they feel. And like I said with the Watchers review, just because you went through something in the past does not make me connect with your character. I have to see that actually happened to you. There has to be some character development going on. Without character development, I have no connection. I have no relatability. And just because you're going through something in your life does not justify you being a horrible person. I don't let things pass when someone is mean to me because they got a ticket or they're late to work. It doesn't justify you being a bad person. So where are these redeeming qualities in this character? Where are the things about this character that I can feel bad for, or I understand why they are behaving the way that they do? And this movie taking place in New York, again, the marketing really pushed like what would happen if it was in this really loud city. But the city becomes quiet almost immediately. We don't really see much of a lot of people getting attacked. And it would have been more intriguing and interesting if we saw different stories or different people across New York getting affected and impacted by this, getting attacked, and different ways that they're trying to navigate through this survival, through this new world. I think personally it would have been very interesting if we explored a character that had to navigate through each part, such as a soldier. Maybe we had a character that was in the National Guard, let's say, because they're local and they were deployed. And this character pushed very hard to have their unit deployed into the city because this person's sister, which played by Nyong'o's character, happens to be in the city. Let's say it goes like that. So this person goes in and they're exploring, navigating through New York, trying to save people, get as many people out as they can before the bridge is destroyed, which you see in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything. And Through that, someone in their unit discovers that these creatures can't see and they are attracted to sound. Because when they immediately crash, we don't know what their abilities are, their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses, their strengths. We don't know that they're keen on sound and they move based off sound. So it would be nice to see someone learn it instead of just going off of what someone tells us, that we don't see how they themselves discovered it. Also, it's nice when someone who's not a lead learns things. It's nice when the leads don't figure everything out themselves and they need help from others, because it kind of builds on this world and makes it more real. Anyway, this unit discovers, right, that they cannot see, but they move based off sound. So then they keep going in, and then our military personnel or military person runs into Nyong'o's character, who happens to be their sister who has cancer, and this can help with the character development, with that they wanted the person in the military never visited family, or wanted to leave the city, was very keen on leaving the city and never really checked up on their sister who has cancer, and just builds up this character development as they interact with one another. And we can have them two kind of navigating through the survival, trying to get out of the city. And if they decide to go with that narrative or think of that idea for future movies, you're very welcome, and I'll be expecting a check. Instead, we get this BS narrative, this BS goal of Nyong'o's character wanting to get pizza. If I were to tell you that this was a Quiet Place movie about someone wanting to get pizza during the end of the world, it sounds like a comedy, and I did not care about her goal. I did not care about what she wanted to do. Then the other lead, played by Joseph Quinn, has no goal, no motive except to survive. But he has nowhere to go. He doesn't care about where he goes. He just doesn't want to be alone. And the reason that he follows Nyong'o's character doesn't really make sense to me, considering he passed other people, larger groups. And so I would think that he would follow them instead of Nyong'o, who is going the other way. Also, Nyong'o's character clearly has a death wish, so why continue moving along with this person? There is actually one thing I do like about this movie, which is the suspense of some scenes. The tension was built. One being with Alex Wolff's character and one of the Death Angels. Another being when they are in the subway, in the water, and that's all I'll say about it. Don't want to spoil it, but that scene was really good. And then the other one being what we saw in the trailer when they're falling through the buildings from the skyscrapers and they're chasing them. That was a cool scene as well. That sequence was probably the best one in this whole movie, and it sucks that they showed it in the trailer. I am seeing, or at least from my perspective, it seems that they are trying to build on the lore of these creatures and of this world as they are making the movies, and that they never really, and it feels that as though they never really thought it through beyond the first film, which happens sometimes. You think of this cool story, you just have one story to tell, it becomes successful, then the studio expects you to deliver more. I get it. But here it's showing that they're just going through the motions and just building on the story and this world as they are making the movie, because there's one scene that doesn't really explain what's going on or what these creatures are eating. We learned from the first two movies that they don't really eat people. They just kill anything that makes sound. Maybe it's because it's bothering them. I don't know. Also, the part about them swimming. We learn this information is delivered in this movie through helicopters, right? They can't see and they are attracted to sound. We learn that they cannot swim because the announcement says so. I want to see them learn this. I want to see our characters realize they cannot see, or that they only move based on reliant on sound, or that they cannot swim. There are some actions or choices that these creatures make that do not make sense to me, and I'm wondering, how do they know that this thing is here, right? How do they know that this thing ends here? So I end up feeling, yeah, there's you start poking holes the more you think about it, and you slowly get towards that territory of nitpicking. But I think my issues are justified because, again, it feels like they're not really thinking the story all the way through. And I think there's an issue here that I think it's possible to have a relatively thin narrative when the movie is very entertaining. But then if the movie's not entertaining and there is no, and the narrative is very thin and like weak character development, what am I here to watch? What am I enjoying? What can I appreciate about this? And it did not deliver something that was very entertaining, and it delivered a weak story. I am wondering why the studio decided to bring some random in. Maybe Michael Sarnowski is not random, but in in relation to this story, he is. We have Brian Woods and John Krasinski who started the story. John Krasinski directed the first two films, and the first two, I would say, are really enjoyable, and there's actually a narrative thread there, and there's something that builds. I believe we are getting a part three following our Emily Blunt and her children, and this movie was maybe just a placeholder, like just to keep people interested in the world, but there was not much thought into making this movie. And hopefully they go back to their, their roots for per se. Maybe they stick to their formula of having John Krasinski direct, Brian Woods and John Krasinski focus on the story, and they're the ones leading the storytelling and writing. Or if you're going to bring someone in that can really write a compelling story. Let Brian Woods and John Krasinski lead. Krasinski get back in director's chair. Give us some more good Quiet Place movies. This movie is a low key ode to New York, and there's supposed to be a deeper meaning with the lead character at the end, but it doesn't really hit me. I end up not really connecting with the motivation. It ends up being weak, and I'm fine with this movie. Y'all can wait till it goes on streaming or digital, rent it. I don't think it's worth the movie ticket. Until next time, y'all take care of each other, check up on one another, make sure you check up on yourself, and remember, potential has no limit.